beginning and start of All Elite Wrestling, known as AEW, where he's been a man who has been the key factor of this commotion, so that this industry, who has tried as the ace of AEW. You know what I'm talking about, Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley debuting at Double or Nothing 2019 hit a paradigm shift in professional wrestling. No pun intended. Rocked the paradigm shift of AEW. Changed the culture of professional wrestling. Portrayed as in WWE, a PG product, Jon Moxley became great. And Jon Moxley then eventually beats Chris Jericho for the AEW World Championship. Now at this point, AEW hit a dry hump because of the pandemic era, and now Jon Moxley becomes a guy telling compelling storylines for the likes of Eddie Kingston, MJF, and of course, Darby Allin. Jon Moxley goes a bond with Eddie Kingston, with great promos and storytelling told, where Jon Moxley is a great friend for Eddie Kingston, a great rock for Eddie Kingston, and talks about the addictions Eddie Kingston's been through. Both of them that relates with. Eventually, Jon Moxley gets the help from Eddie Kingston, where Eddie Kingston comes in to save him as his brother. Jon Moxley then teams up with Eddie Kingston and Dave Lord for tag team gold against the Young Bucks, where they end up losing, coming short, but nonetheless, Jon Moxley ends up going for Wild Team, a great new team new addition, a great way for the crowd to interact with Jon Moxley, because the crowds were just coming back around that time. Perfect way to do it. And that's how Jon Moxley became even more cool. Jon Moxley, sadly, has to battle his addiction at that point. His addiction on the rise, Jon Moxley leaves AEW for the better, and he comes back in a great shape, looking fantastic. Jon Moxley then calls out Bryan Danielson, and they have their promos building up to their match at Revolution 2022. Where William Regal debuts, he is the enforcer in this swig. Jon Moxley then starts looking for talent. He makes Wheeler Yuta bleed, eventually for Wheeler Yuta to say, "I'm in." And they become Blackpool Comic Club. Jon Moxley then goes on to be great as what he did with the likes of JS, and again teaming up with a bond that he grew with Eddie Kingston. Claudio Castagnoli eventually debuts, and he's right away named as the member of Blackpool Combat Club. Jon Moxley then goes on to face the real world champion, where the circumstances were due. Jon Moxley ended up becoming the world champion because the circumstances where CM Punk was injured. So Jon Moxley had to hold that reign of AEW's top guy. He had to become that guy again because of CM Punk being injured. He became the Rock that AEW needed. And as always, the Rock that he always needed there on my obvious times. Jon Moxley becomes AEW World Champion, but he ends up losing to CM Punk. And eventually CM Punk's brawl-out scenario, Jon Moxley ends up becoming AEW World Champion again. But then he again lost to MJF with the help of William Regal. And now William Regal is disbanded from Blackpool Combat Club, which William Regal eventually ends up returning to WWE as a way to put it off and write him off television. Jon Moxley ends up in a feud with Hangman Page, or Jon Moxley eventually accidentally forced Hangman Page to turn into a feud of a storyline, but Hangman Page is upset and Jon Moxley didn't buy it, and Jon Moxley ends up turning heel. And now Jon Moxley turns a turning heel. He turns Blackpool Combat heel, where they go up against the Elite to take everybody out. They make Don Callis bleed. The Blackpool Combat Club have a great match with the Elite and Anarchy at the Arena, where Jon Moxley ends up again victorious because of Kinosuke Takeshita attacking Kenny Omega. And then at Blood and Guts, the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club had their match, which again was an incredible match. Jon Moxley now goes on to face Orange Cassidy all out, where he becomes international champion. Then Jon Moxley goes on to lose to Rey Fenix because of a botch. Jon Moxley eventually has a match with Orange Cassidy at full gear, and now that's it for Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley from now onwards goes on to have an incredible run as just a tag team guy called a XTO. They go on and have a series of matches with FTR. Jon Moxley, GP World Championship from Tetsuya Naito, which he does. And then Jon Moxley has a run with the IWGP World Championship, eventually drops the belt back. Tetsuya Naito at Forbidden Door. Jon Moxley then disappeared, is coming back as a Romper Stomper, as a guy who wants to change the business, change the world, change the way about things go around. Jon Moxley goes on to tell Tony Schiavone that this is not your company anymore. Jon Moxley is unhinged, he's more deranged, and it works. Paper batting, Bryan calling themselves the Deathriders. The Deathriders eventually take the title from Bryan Dennison at Wrestle Dream. Even jobbers in AEW could never do something about it. So Orange Cassidy got something. They have a fucking fantastic full year ending. Darby Allin driving his car to Jon Moxley and the Deathriders. Full weight at World's End. And people, this is where things start to change. Jon Moxley ends up becoming a dreadful character. Kills Adam Copeland's momentum. Kills everybody's momentum. And eventually, Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley have their match at Revolution, where they had Christian Cage come in and drop the contract for Noise. That's another topic for another day. What to an awful match that Adam Copeland, stinker of the match, interference by Christian Cage, but cash in. So now school or Christian Cage after build up. It's all in. That's another video for another day. Swerve Strickland attacks Jon Moxley at AEW Revolution, and then that builds up to AEW Dynasty. So that's where the Young Bucks come out there and take out Swerve Strickland, doing it for their friend. So at this point, Jon Moxley is still the AEW World Champion, and I will put you at the test here. Whether you disagree or not, tell me in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe or like. If that's your opinion, do you watch it? Jon Moxley, is he needed in AEW or he's not? Is the cornerstone of AEW. He can have great programs. He can have great feuds. Let's get into why he's not needed in AEW. Hello. I'm sorry to tell you, but I'm gonna bury him for this. What he came up with has been dog shit, okay? A report came out when Jon Moxley came back in August that Jon Moxley's this new character is gonna be Russell Crowe from Romper Stomper. And you've seen the movie. The movie is pretty alright, I would say. I think that's great. Crowe from Romper Stomper is banging chicks. He doesn't go in the group, but he's not banging her because that's not even part of the storyline. We know that Renee Paquette is his wife, so what are you trying to tell us? You're trying to put this character out there, this movie out there, and tell us that this is what it's trying to be? The dead person of the death of AEW. This group has great talent in it. There is a plethora of a roster that don't need people like Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho, Swerve Strickland, and Adam Page, MJF, Jay White, Adam Cole, Bobby Lashley, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, eventually Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, Konosuke Takeshita. Why do you need Jon Moxley? This mission has changed. I'm not saying Jon Moxley needs to leave AEW, go return to WWE. That can eventually happen if he wants that for himself. Jon Moxley isn't that guy. He was the pillar alongside with Chris Jericho. This is their face of the company. All these talents can carry AEW. And people like Jon Moxley are a meter in AEW. It's a cold hard fact that nobody will ever accept.